coming up on Makosi today.
So those are some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, because I was coming from Africa and no one from Africa had ever done that. Because most of these devices that are coming, we have to tailor-make them for them to work for us, but they're really not meant for us.
But Astro is made in Africa for Africa.
For Africa.
Today I'm talking to our very own Steve Jobs, Munya Gwatidzo. He's invented a phone, not just a phone, but a smartphone. It's got presence in Nigeria, it's got presence in Botswana. It'll be interesting to know his journey, where he started, and his vision, where he's going. So join me whilst I join Munya Gwatidzo and watch me whip his... Yeah, you know what?
There is huge potential in Africa, in the technology world, particularly in the mobile industry. As Africans, we are yet to use our phones to their full capacity. There is a need to customize devices that are specific for Africa. For Munya Gwatidzo, the love and passion for technology, particularly mobile phones, started over 10 years ago. He has a desire to make phones relevant and easy to use. Munya Gwatidzo, a banker by profession, started buying and selling second-hand phones with a goal to sell them to businesses and developed a consistent transaction for consistent cash flow. But in no time, Munya had made solid connections and developed significant relationships, which eventually allowed him to partner with a Chinese technology company that distributed cell phones. It was not an easy ride, as he had to overcome discouragement, fear and doubt, but his hard work and tenacity kept him focused. With a mindset of nothing will stop this vision, he soon started clearly defining what he wanted his brand to represent. Munya started personally designing his phones, detailing the face and cosmetics, and sending the blueprints to their new assembling partners overseas. Astro started to gain momentum from their new designs and has grown since. His vision is to develop an all-African brand and true to the African proverb which says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go with others. He works with young upcoming developers. Through this, he gives them a platform to express their creativity, create legacies, and leave a lasting mark in the African continent. He believes he will build the biggest African mobile brand, Astro. To date, 32-year-old Munya has won several awards, including the 2011 Victors Awards Upcoming Entrepreneur, 2012 Top ICT Young Innovator, 2013 Young Innovators Award, the 2013 Award of Excellence at the MegaFest National Business Awards, as well as by Zimbabwe's second runner-up for Innovation Award in the same year, and the Zim Downs Hall Platinum Sponsor Award in 2014. Join Makosi as she digs deeper into the Astro story.
So you are our very own 32-year-old Steve Jobs. You've come up with a smartphone. Talk to me through the journey of actually coming up with your very own smartphone.
I think it's a pretty long journey. How I started. Basically, I think I've grown up to be a person that was just fascinated about technology. I just loved technology naturally, without probably studying it or anything. You know, obviously, how we grow up. Normally, our parents dictate what kind of things that you're going to do when you grow up. So if your brothers are bankers, they basically force you to be a banker, because to them that's probably the only profession that they feel safe with and that they feel that you're going to do better. So obviously growing up, I was mentored or, you know, positioned or to be a banker when I really didn't want to be a banker. But eventually I became a banker, started working in a bank, but obviously I was not really excited in terms of banking, because I was not a banker. I was an IT freak. So obviously working in a bank, I used to experiment, you know, help the system guys, and I was literally like working in IT when I was like a banker.
How long were you a banker for?
5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, only 5 years.
And then you started selling phones?
Then I started selling phones. I actually started selling phones when I was still a banker. So initially, I think it was a time when there were network providers that had actually been established in Zambia that time. Then we'd actually, I would actually buy 1 or 2 cell phones, then go with them to Zambia, then sell them. Right. So it was hard to sell 2 cell phones at that particular time because you'd had to move from one shop to the other, looking for the buyers to actually buy them.
Just to sell 2 phones?
Just to sell 2 phones, because I think the margins were pretty big there than what you could get here. Because here people would say these are second-hand phones and no one would want them. Mm-hmm. But in Zambia, they were good phones. So I would jump into a bus on a Friday after work, go to Zambia, try to sell 2 cell phones, and sometimes it was hard. You don't have anywhere to sleep. You probably ended up sleeping on a bench or sleeping in a bus. Then, you got your customers, you sell them, then you come back to Zim on a Sunday, Monday back to work.
You've slept on a bench before?
Yeah, I've slept on a bench before.
What's going on through your head when you're on that bench? Do you see Astro happening, or you just focusing on selling those 2 phones?
At that time, I didn't really see Astro, but I just saw probably a big shop.
Distributor.
Just distributing or just increasing my 2 phones probably to 10 or 20.
So at what point did you decide I am going to introduce Astro to the world?
Initially, I didn't introduce Astro, but what I did was I'm one person who's self-motivated, who believes that if someone can do something, I can also do it.
Right.
So, I've at that time you had Nokias and all these kind of phones coming into Zim, and I was like, who's making these phones and how are they doing it? Then I took an interest in actually understanding how they make these cell phones. So I started to study on my own on internet and, looking at all sorts of information to study how do you actually make your cell phones and how does the business work and how does the cell phones actually come here. Then I discovered that, most of these guys are actually making these phones out of other countries from Asia. They're really not making these phones in their own countries. Then I saw a difference in terms of margin that, if I'm to cut all this distribution cost, because for you to get a phone, it has to come from Europe, then you had to have a South African distributor. Then from the South African distributor, you have to find a Zimbabwean distributor before you get the phone.
That's why it's expensive.
That's why it's expensive, okay. Because you've got like 4 guys who are middlemen, who are just adding margins before you actually get to sell the phones. And I said, you know what? Why can't I cut all these people and deal directly with these guys that are manufacturing the phones? But obviously the challenge was, what brand am I going to do with?
Right.
That's when I went to China. Then I started to walk around factories in China, trying to understand how the guys, they make these cell phones and what kind of transactional agreements you need to have with these guys to actually have your own brand. Obviously, I was still very young. They didn't take me serious. They were saying, you're 21 and what are you talking about? So it was difficult for them to take me seriously. So the first time I went, I just came back. No one wanted to work with me.
So those are some of the challenges you faced?
Yeah, because I was coming from Africa and no one from Africa had ever done that. To actually say, you know what guys, I want to start my own brand. And they was like,
and you were only
how much
22?
Money do you have? And I was like, I don't really have much. And they say, you're not serious. So to them, it was fascinating. And to some of the parts that I went, they really had never met a black guy. So they were actually fascinated about me being black initially. And, to make it more exciting was, I want to do my own brand as well.
What made you think it was going to work? What was driving you?
I think it was something that was just coming from within to say, you know what, I want to make a difference. I want to make something that we can talk about in Africa. Because most of these devices that are coming, we have to tailor-make them for them to work for us. But right. They're really not meant for us.
But Astro is made in Africa for Africa.
So, like you find on Astro, what we have been trying to do is to make the devices more relevant to Africa. So what we've been doing is developing applications that make it more relevant. Like now, we've got applications that you are able to have access to local content, African content. You've got music, you've got books, you've got sermons, you've got screensavers. So you've got all the content that you'd ideally get on other European stores, but you've got a dedicated store that you can get and have access to African content. So this doesn't only help us, but it also helps millions and thousands of developers that are out there that didn't have any way to actually place their content for other people to buy that content. So we're differentiating our devices in such a way that they are more relevant. And we believe that Astro is a brand for Africa. because it answers our problems. We always tailor make it to be relevant to the African people.
Coming up after the break.
Because we are making relevant solutions for the whole of Africa. First of all, people resisted initially the brand.
When you're faced with challenges, what keeps you going? When you're faced with challenges, what keeps you going?
It's difficult, especially when you're still learning business. You're not that experienced in business, and you don't have people to tell you, what, this is how you do it. And most of the things you have to learn it yourself. So it has been very difficult. It was not a smooth journey. First of all, people resisted initially the brand, and they said, what can a Zimbabwean make? And this brand, what exactly is it? We are used to foreign brands that come here. So initially the biggest challenge was for people to accept the brand. So we had to advertise, we had to convince the people, we had to sell units to people. They have to first use the device, experience the device. Then they started to tell their friends that, I've been using this device for a year. It's an amazing device. And people started to then start to give in and started to like our product and started to buy our product. Then obviously it's the challenge that you face even when you're looking for financing from banks and different kind of investors. So it was a challenge to get funding because no one believed that someone locally, especially an African, could actually come up with their own mobile device that they would say, I've designed and this is what I want to do. So it was a huge challenge to actually get funding. Then obviously you then try to find your own networks of friends that you have to try, to connect them to what you're doing and say, this is what I'm doing. Can you come on board? And I believe that there's a huge opportunity for Africa. We can come up with cost-effective devices for the whole of Africa. Because what I believe in is technology is a necessity. It's not a privilege for the rich or for the people that have got money. But each and every person has a right to communication, and they've got a right to affordable devices. So we believe by coming up with our own solutions, we're able to offer these devices at the lowest possible prices so that each and every African can actually afford a smartphone. So obviously when you partner with people, they become greedy, they see the opportunity, they obviously think they can then topple you out, then they can be left with the business. So those are some of the challenges that I then faced, where you invite your friends into the business, let's do this, then eventually they try to kick you out of the business that you have created. So those are some of the challenges that I faced. I was then kicked out of the business that I had created for 3 years, 4 years running the business. Then I was like, I'm at zero again.
How do you protect your software though? How do you protect yourself from that happening?
It's difficult. I think because our court system, they don't really have legislation which can protect intellectual property. So if you have to register for a patent, you have to register it internationally, like in the States or in UK or in probably nowadays in South Africa. But you find that doesn't really have weight here in Zimbabwe because those laws are foreign laws and they don't apply to our own laws. So it's very difficult to actually patent a solution here locally. But now, because we are looking at the whole of Africa as a market, it's now becoming easier for us because we patent our products internationally to be protected for the whole of Africa. But solely for Zimbabwe, it's still a challenge, and a lot of people, their ideas are stolen, and they don't have recourse. The person who's got a little bit of muscle, they can just take someone's idea, then they can use it, and they really don't have anything. So basically what we need is education, to educate the upcoming business people, especially in the tech environment, on how to register patents and how to protect their intellectual property, especially from other big companies, so that they know the value that they have created. Because sometimes there's a lot of value that you create in a software that you develop, and you don't even know. But someone sees that opportunity, they take that away from you, or they pay you a song because you don't see the value. Someone offers you $10,000, you say, wow, that's a lot of money, but they're going to make millions of dollars out of it. So there's a lot of education that is needed, especially on upcoming business people, especially in the ICT sector, to have this kind of understanding.
So what's the vision for Astra?
Astro should dominate, should be a household name in every house in Africa, because we are making relevant solutions for the whole of Africa. And that's where we are going. It's taking Africa and giving them the product that they need. So each and every country in Africa, they has to be using the Astro mobile phone, because that's the only African brand that I know of at the moment. The Astro mobile phone, because that's the only African brand that I know of at the moment.
That's awesome.
Coming up after the break.
So now I feel like I know Munya Gwatidzo, the well-awarded youngest innovator in Africa. But what's behind all those awards? Who is Munya Gwatidzo? So now I feel like I know Munya Gwatidzo, the well-awarded youngest innovator in Africa. But what's behind all those awards? Who is Munya Gwatidzo?
How I grew up, it kind of inspires me now when I look where I came from. I was born in Bari, which is probably one of the oldest ghettos.
Sorry, can I interrupt you? I was born in Bari at Edith Opperman.
Yeah, so that's where I grew up, that's where I was born, and my mother died when I was 3, and my dad at that point just disappeared, and it was just me and my brothers, without probably anyone taking care of us. So it was like kids taking care of themselves. So at that time our relatives, they also vanished, so it was actually difficult to pay school fees and things like that. So I would go to school with scholarships, and until I finished grade 7, I was learning in Bari. And after that, there was also a challenge for me to then go to high school, because we didn't have money to actually do that. Then there were also people that then offered to take me to school. Then I learned at a school called Chubue in Chipinge. Yeah, it's in the middle of Chipinge, and it's like a school in the middle of the bush. You don't really have anyone staying around, and it was that kind of school that people would say, they would laugh at you that if you told people that this is where I learned, because we didn't have electricity, we didn't have all those kind of things. So you would have to read using a candle, and it was really hard. And you'd come back home, you really don't have anyone to take care of you, because my brothers were busy trying to find a living, and it was pretty hard for me, growing up without parents. And my brothers would actually go out there and play football. At that time, there was football which was called money game, where someone would just put $1 or a cent, then you'd combine, then they would play, then they would win, for him to actually find money to buy relish for us to eat. So we didn't know where we were going to get money to eat the next day. So we would just do all sort of things to actually get that. So you'd find that's actually what inspired me to make a difference. And I said, you know what, I don't want my kids to have this kind of life that I grew up in, where I didn't know what I was going to eat the next day. But obviously that kind of background, it shaped me to be what I think I am today, because I had a force in me that would say, you know what, I want to make a difference, and I would want to take care of the millions of children that don't have parents, that are growing up without anyone taking care of them. So it automatically made me a person that would want to do something big, that would give me the capacity to actually look after these children that don't have anyone who looks after them. Because to me it was difficult. No relative, no anyone to pay your school fees. Every time you'd spend the first 1 month not at school. Then you would probably go to school the last month, when someone would actually donate for you to go to school. So this is what I'm working towards in probably coming up with a fund that looks after orphans that don't have anyone to pay school fees for them, so that I can also give them a life that probably I didn't have, the support that I didn't have. So that made me who I am. I said, you know what, I want to make a difference in Africa, so that I can be a difference to the thousands of African children that don't have parents and anyone to look after them.
So honored to have you on Makosi today. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right, thank you very much.
So here I was, I thought I'm going to come here and play golf and speak about phones with Munya Gwatidzo, but we ended up speaking about his upbringing. Makosi today is all about changing the face of Africa, one story at a time, and with amazing, innovative people like Munya Gwatidzo, we are well on our way. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of each other.
Next on Makosi Today.
I was attacked in my driveway, beaten, robbed, and they broke into my house, dragged me into the home, and they told me immediately that they were going to rape me. I pleaded with them, but nothing was going to deter them from doing what they came there to do.